I'm Matt Rowland. I'm a teacher in San Juan Unified School District. This year, we're really starting to get an influx of iPads specifically in San Juan Unified. They're ordering lots and lots of iPads because there's this kind of mystique about them. Unfortunately, what we're not seeing is a whole lot of expertise about exactly how to use these in the classroom. We really rely on teachers to use it as another tool to teach, and we're trying to help lead people in finding out what research is out there, what best practices are, and how to lead that work. So first thing I'd like to talk about is what exactly are iPod touches and iPads? The thing that makes them different than a laptop computer is really the form factor, small, single, not a clamshell, and the magic finger interface. There's this level of abstraction that happens with a laptop where you're controlling a mouse, which is actually on the screen. And for some reason, that abstraction makes it inaccessible to some people, especially young children. What we're seeing now with the iPad is that kindergartners can do wonderful things on iPads that really they were not able to do with laptops. So there's the form factor and just the nature of the device really lends itself to younger children. Now, what they are not, after doing technology integration trainings for a few years, I think what I need to advocate for is this is not a magic learning device. Some people, I don't know if it's all school districts or just our school district, but they see this thing and it's shiny. It's shiny and it's got an apple on it, so it must be magic, right? And we buy them by the case, and then we put them in front of students and step away. And you are going to become magically smarter because there's learning goo in here that's going to get on you, and you're going to just absorb everything. Okay, this is not that device. It's a wonderful device, but it's not going to do that. It's not a magical learning device, and it's not a robo-teacher. You like that robo-teacher? I like that one. I love that picture. It's awesome. So don't expect that there's magic in here that's going to do the work that we do. We know that everybody in this room is teachers. Anybody that works with students to help them manage their learning and orchestrate their learning as a teacher. And this is just another tool that we have to help our students achieve their learning goals. So remember that whenever somebody says, hey, let's buy some iPads, that's great. What are you going to do with them? Next, one of the things that I wanted to cover was when you buy one of these things out of the box, it comes with several apps that are loaded on it, and that's short for applications, little programs. But it also has some accessibility features that are built in to support individuals with special needs. Next, there are three main categories of built-in accessibility features built into the iPad. First, it'll help people that have hearing difficulties. First, through visual alerts, you can set the iPad to pop up with visual alerts on almost any app that you're running. It'll have a visual interface. Also, there's closed captioning on most video and streaming, so you can actually read the content. And lastly, if you have somebody that has trouble with one ear or the other, there's mono audio. Also, so it combines both channels into one that broadcasts in both, so you don't have a hard time with that. One of the most overlooked aspects when you purchase these little babies is headphones. Don't forget the headphones if you're doing that, because these are incredible individualized learning devices, but it all breaks down if you have a lot of speech recognition going on in here and it's broadcasting to the whole room. So don't forget the earphones. That's something that we're struggling with right now as we buy class sets of these. What's the best way to do that? Earbuds, over the head, do we share them? I don't know, so that's something to consider. Next, physical and motor issues. As you see here, we have this young lady that probably doesn't have the use of her arms. The iPad, the interface, since you don't have to move a mouse, it offers a lot of opportunities for kids that don't otherwise have, or individuals that don't otherwise have a way to interface with the computer. Also, we have external input devices and a customizable interface. Specifically about the multiple orientation, the mouth stick that we see there. I have some scars on my stylus here from an initial experiment that we did with Aaron, who's a quadriplegic that's at Ralph Richardson Center. He interfaces with a computer that they have in the classroom. Right now, it's through like a head mouse or something. I don't even really understand it. Somebody in this room probably knows a lot more than I do about that. Barbara knows? But Sydney went out there to Ralph Richardson and took him the iPad and the stylus, and it bears battle wounds that I'm very proud of. It's his teeth marks that are all over this thing that got the paint all off it. And it was great. Sydney stood it up in front of him, and he stuck it in his mouth, and he was going to town. So that just shows me, I mean, I was amazed. I hadn't even considered that before. It's probably old news to you, but how magical. What was his response to it? Did he like it, appreciate it, better than what he uses? Can't wait to get one. So now our challenge is, he loves the device. There's accessibility features built into it. Just the very nature of the device allows him to access it. Now, what do we as teachers do to direct his learning with this device? How can we orchestrate that learning for him? So, physical and motor issues. You can individualize this to meet their individual needs. And finally, probably the most dramatic is for those that are vision impaired. One of the accessibility features in all Macs, and iPads included, is technology called VoiceOver. What VoiceOver does is it'll translate all the text that's on the screen into speech. So it'll actually speak to the individual, which brings us back to the importance of headphones if you have more than a couple of kids with VoiceOver turned on. You can also customize the VoiceOver feature so that you can slow the rate that it's speaking. You can also use something that's called a rotor navigation. There's a great tutorial video on Apple's site where you put your hands on the screen and you basically turn it like a rotor, and you can actually, it'll step from either word to word or character to character or link to link, and you set up how the rotor works. And so that'll help people if they're working on word recognition or letter recognition, just turning that dial a little bit. It's a fascinating feature. I love it. And one of the things that I learned about when I was researching this was Braille displays for those that are vision impaired. It's fabulous. You can actually hook them up to this via Bluetooth, and it will actually, it's a resettable Braille display, so it'll read the display to you in Braille. It's fascinating. Has anybody had experience with those in this room? Nobody. Something to check out. I would love to see one in action. It was just amazing to me. So, assistance for the vision impaired. And these are all accessibility features that are built into the iPad. You just need to know where they are and how to set them. Next, we're going to go really briefly into exactly what's an app. Well, as you've probably figured out by now, I'm talking specifically about the Apple iPad and iPod Touch. iPod Touch, iPhone, this little guy right here. With some overgeneralization, you can say that the iPad is a giant iPhone or iPod Touch. You can do most of what you can do on the iPad with this little guy, the obvious difficulty being the small screen size. So you can't do too much creation, for example, with this little guy. One of the things that I know that Apple originally designed this device for was multimedia consumption. And that was one of my I was initially a little hesitant to see these come into the classroom because I'm an advocate for constructivist learning and building your own understanding. And this, when it was originally released, was a purely consumptive device. I can get a lot of stuff. People can show me things, but what can I do to create and show my understanding through this? With the release of the latest iOS for this and iPod 2 that actually has a camera as well, it unlocks a lot of creative potential for these devices. And so I'm really excited to see, along with all the apps that are out there, the different creative outlets that children have with these. So, an app, like I digressed. An app is a single function program that runs on the device. You'll see on the iPhone or on the iPad, single icons. Very simple interface for this thing. That's what apps are. Now, one of the things that makes Apple amazing is the iTunes Store, where you have over 350,000 apps developed by people in the public or dedicated developers. And the trick with that is deciding, well, what's useful? Which apps am I going to use? Because you have a lot of apps that do the same thing. How do I decide, with over 350,000 apps out there, what's going to be useful? It's almost you're drowning in this sea of apps that might be potentially useful, and where do I turn to figure out what app will help my individual student with their individual learning need? And that's where we're going to segue over to Shane, who's going to share with us. This is actually a screenshot of his review scale of a few apps that are specifically not only for autism, but for general special needs. I also wanted to remind you, though, that there are many sites out there that review apps, and you can find links to those on the iPad page for San Juan. The link is right there, www.sanjuan.edu/iPad. We created a few very basic links, and specifically there are general tutorials, video tutorials about how to use the thing if you've never unpacked it before. Also about how to set up the accessibility features that I was sharing with you earlier. You'll also find a little bit further down on the page some links to education-specific page websites. One of them is the Educational Review Apps Review, which will do the same kind of thing that Shane was doing about taking a look at all the apps that are out there and finding out which ones are really relevant, which ones are really powerful, and suggesting those to you in the multitude of different apps that are available. And lastly, we have a section on the page about special education and different specific sites that will support special education use of iPads, and Shane's site is listed on there. So, that's my quick 30-second, a little bit longer introduction to what an iPad is, what apps are, and how they can be used for get started with helping kids with special needs or individuals with special needs. Shane?
I'm Shane Nurnberg, as you know now. I'm the founder of AutismEpicenter.com. My background and my work history is all technology and disabilities. I have a bachelor's degree in management information systems from Sac State, and I have a 9-year-old son with autism. I'm familiar with different programming languages. In fact, I did some programming in college, but I hate programming, so I don't do it anymore. Haven't done it in years. But with that knowledge of programming, coupled with the many, many apps that I've reviewed, I know what can and can't be achieved with different apps, and I actively use an iPhone and an iPad to help my son. I've worked as a professional graphics designer and a web designer, and in many ways I still do that, not only for my own site, but also for the website for Rowell Family Empowerment, for my agency. I work for them currently. Here's the part where it says 2.5 hours north, which I already covered, getting ahead of myself. You know, it used to be in the past, when I was a server for Red Lobster, someone asked me what I did, I could say, yeah, I'm a waiter. Everybody knew what that meant. I do so many things at Rowell Family Empowerment now that it would take me half an hour to explain that. So I kind of sum it up by saying assistive technology, advocacy, and more. I recently spoke on this same subject on apps at OSEP's mega conference in Virginia, and also for DDS at the Family Resources and Supports Institute in Foster City, just to name a couple. Okay, now about how my personal crosses over with what I do at Rowell Family Empowerment. When I bought this, I told you I bought it for selfish intentions, and then I found that app, and we started using it with my son because we'd been having problems with him at dinner time. He didn't want to eat dinner because if he ate dinner, he knew that that went into tubby time, which went into eventually bedtime, and he never wants to go to sleep. He doesn't want to go to bed. So we were having issues with it. So when I bought that app and I put pictures in there of him when he's happy, of course. So the picture of him when he's eating dinner, you know, because I wanted to give him that visual. You got to eat dinner. He needed that to be able to process this and run it through in his mind. So I had a happy picture of him in there eating dinner. If you touch that picture, it says, time to eat dinner, and he could flip through on the screen over to the next thing. He could see what was coming up. And it changed things tremendously. All of a sudden, he wanted to see his visual schedule. He was thrilled to eat dinner. He started eating again, which is tremendous. And he even went to bed with a smile, which I have no idea how he slept, being as excited as he was. But so a lot of my personal work crosses over with what I do at Rowell, because that was what I had done personally. And I took that to my agency, and I noticed that the incredible difference that it made with him. I did a review on that first app, and I don't remember, sometime between there and here, things expanded, and now I'm here talking and speaking in a lot of different venues also. So it's kind of funny how that's worked out. So that's how the reviews started. I call them on my website. Because my website is autismepicenter.com, I don't want you to get hung up on thinking that all the apps that I review on my website are specific to autism. Because as you know, autism, Down syndrome, PDD-NOS, several other disabilities all cross over. So I call them autism apps because when you make a website, you need to have keyword-focused content. So autism apps was a major keyword that my website goes after in order so that search engines will see my site so that my website is relevant. So on my website, you'll see that I often call them autism apps. Don't get hung up on that. Also, I should tell you, with my website, I make money in a couple different ways. One of them is when I do reviews, I do reviews mostly on apps that are not free. There's a few of them that I do that are free, but usually they're the higher end apps because I feel that by reviewing the higher end apps, I'm doing more of a service for families, for people that are looking to purchase those apps down the road. And anybody can review the free apps. Nobody needs me to review them because you can download them, check them out for free, and figure out if they're going to suit your needs or not. And I feel a little bit arrogant saying this, but I think that my reviews are a little more relevant than reviews that you would find in the App Store. You've all been to the App Store, purchased different apps, right? You know there's a 5-star rating system. I use the same thing on my website just so it seems similar. The problem with all the reviews on the App Store is that, first of all, if it's a free app, anybody can download it. If they download it, but they don't read the description first, they're not sure, they have in mind what they think it's going to do, and then they download the app and it does something different. I've seen more often than not, they may tend to go leave negative feedback because they can say, this app is stupid. Give it 1 star, which is the fewest you can give it. You can't leave 0 stars. So some apps that don't deserve a bad rating, you may see a bad rating in the App Store. With my background, I feel that my reviews are more relevant because the exact reason that I gave you before, with my background, with the fact that I've seen so many apps, I know what they can do. After you look at a few AAC apps, augmentative and alternative communication apps, you get an idea of what the other apps are doing and what they're capable of. So by the time you get to the 20th, and I think I've reviewed about that many of them on my site, by the time you see the 20th, you know what to look for. I thoroughly put the apps through the ringers. So you know that by going to my site. Also, my website ranks highly on search terms like autism app, autism apps, autism app reviews. I have this screenshot up there because every time I've spoken in the past, people ask me, well, how do you get to them? Where are the reviews at? They're on my website, autismepicenter.com, and then underneath the menu on the left, you'll see this graphic. Click on that, it takes you straight to the reviews. Okay, these same symbols that you see on the screen here are the symbols I use on my website for compatibility. It gives you an idea when you're on the review itself, because one app isn't always good for all the devices. The one on the far side means, help me? Right, the 2 devices, because those are the apps that work with one of those devices. They're pretty synonymous. It works with the iTouch, it's going to work with the iPhone. The next one, obviously, iPad only. This next one, now the next 2, the third one, the one in the middle, is a universal app. That's the ideal for all the apps, because if they're universal, it means you buy it once. It's going to look great and work great on your iPod Touch, on your iPhone, on your iPad. One purchase price. You can load it on anything. The one second from the right, this is one I call separate but equal. It means that particular app is available for any of the devices, but with separate purchases. There's some like that, because apparently I've been told by developers that Apple is sometimes encouraging them to make apps specific for the iPad. So some of them are having to do that. So you'll find that. There will be an app that is separate but equal. You got to buy it once for the iPad. It will not install on the iTouch or the iPhone. However, if you were to buy the iPhone, the iTouch app, that version, generally, most of the time, it's compatible with your iPad also. The thing is, I'll get into it when I show you one of the apps in there, how it looks on the screen. It just doesn't take advantage of the screen real estate. It's not going to be high definition. I don't recommend putting iPhone apps onto your iPad unless you have to. You pay a lot for the iPad, and then it doesn't take advantage of it. And of course, the one on the far right, we all notice this symbol? Who knows what Android, right? And this is a good time to discuss what I call the platform issue. And that is, I don't own stock in Apple. I don't endorse Apple's products. The only reason I'm talking about Apple is because there are so many apps in this niche available for these devices. To give you an idea, I think a couple weeks ago, I did a search on BlackBerry's store. I don't remember what it's called. Androids, which is Android Marketplace, I think. And then I did a search in the App Store and Apple Store, right? For AAC. That's all I searched on, just letters AAC. Now, of course, when you do a search on letters AAC, it brings up a lot of stuff other than just augmentative and alternative communications. Brings up, for some reason, lots of radio stations. Lots of radio station apps. So that acronym isn't, of course, just our acronym. But anyway, give you an idea. BlackBerry had 0 AAC apps. I looked through what's available to make sure that somewhere in there I'm not missing something. None of them, because their store is so small right now, it's growing. Android had 7 AAC apps. And of those, I can't say that I've reviewed them all. I've looked at some of them because most of the ones that are in there are also available for the Apple devices. And they're usually not the better AAC apps either. And then in the App Store, there was 20-ish is what I wrote on my notes there, because they're growing so much. Excuse me. But that's 20. That gives you a good idea. That's just one little niche of AAC apps. Gives you a really good idea there of why I'm talking about the Apple devices. There are some that are made for Android. Why would you want to consider this device an iPad for a child with a disability? I can tell you the reason that I got one for my son. Inexpensive is a big deal because if you just look at traditional AAC devices like a Dynavox, I think in April a Dynavox VMAX was $8,000 some odd dollars, specific to AAC, right? Can't do anything else with it. The top of the line iPad with Prolo Quota Go, which is a $189 app, you're talking, what, $1,100, maybe $1,200 with tax and an appropriate carry case for it. That's a huge difference. So cost is a big deal. I can't say too much about the cool factor, though, especially for kids with disabilities. Having something on them that's cool, that's going to possibly get more social opportunities, that's a big deal for kids like my son. For a lot of kids, the cool factor is a really big deal. Portability, I don't need to say anything else about that. They do more than just AT, as you know, more than just assistive technology. And that's also the reason why a lot of the insurance companies won't cover them, because they're not solely for communicating. They know they'll do music, they'll do videos, they'll do all this other stuff too, which chalks up to the cool part for me. And I was speaking to a parent recently who said that, well, for one, her child was nonverbal. She said, well, yeah, he's not going to realize it's cool, though. And I go, yeah, but the other kids will. If he has that in class, the other kids will know that. So it still may get those social opportunities. This is how I evaluate apps. Obviously, the app has to do what it claims. Let's say it's an augmentative and alternative communication app. It's got to do that service. So I'll look at the app. Does it seem to cover that base? There's a lot to consider there. I'm kind of covering this broadly. I'm kind of blanketing it. Because when I look at an app, I look at it overall, the whole thing. So I kind of had to sum it up for bullet points up here. So I think this does a pretty good job. Would it have the features you'd expect? What I mean by that is, let's say, using my same example as an AAC app, not all of them will let you record and use your own voice, or use some other child's voice who's about equal age and gender as the child that you're going to use it with, right? Okay, so if it doesn't allow you to use your own voice or to record a voice, does it have a pronunciation engine built into it? My son's name is Braden, spelled B-R-A-D-E-N, like Brad in, Brad out. That's how I like to say it. But when people read it, they say Braden. And every single AAC app will say Braden. So I always have to go into the pronunciation engine. I have to modify it. I have to spell it out. This is the name, B-R-A-D-E-N. And then generally on the next line, you write it phonetically how it sounds. So usually I write B-R-A-D space I-N-N. He's a hotel, right? Brad in. And then they get it. Some AAC apps don't have a pronunciation engine built in. And that's just my son's name we're talking about. There's a lot of words out there that aren't phonetic. So it's got to have features that you'd expect. Having an in-app backup feature is a big deal also. Because if you have a device, say a child uses this device all the time, it is their voice, and it gets destroyed. Well, if it doesn't have an in-app backup, when you replace that device, you always have the app, right? Once you purchase it, you have it. You don't lose it. But when you get that device back in place, if there wasn't an in-app backup feature, you have to put everything, all your customizations back in place, including your pronunciations and things, right? This seems kind of silly also. These are multi-touch interfaces. But there's a lot of apps that don't really take well advantage of that. So this is something I look at when I'm reviewing apps too, because we want to swipe, do things in an intuitive manner. They don't always do that. Also, depending on the type of app, if it's an app that you put data in, maybe it's Behavior Tracker Pro, when I'm reviewing an app, obviously I use it. I put data in it. And this kind of comes down to my fifth point there. Is it stable? I try to crash the app. I want to put data into the app. I want to see if it's crashable. It has to be a stable application. Because if it's not, that's going to frustrate you. And this is all the more important if it's an app that's meant to be in a child's hands. Maybe first words, where they're putting words together, where this is meant to be in their hands. If it crashes, that's going to frustrate some kids. So we don't want that. So I check that out. Intuitive and easy to use. Believe it or not, there are some of them that are so full-featured that it kind of subtracts from the intuitiveness of the interface. I'm really talking about the interface here, but I'm talking about ease of use. We want apps that are intuitive and easy to use. Generally, red on green, it fries your eyes. It's hard to look at. You want them to be easy on the eyes too, because I've seen a couple that they use the wrong colors, and I was going, man, this seems like a simple thing. How come they made it that way? Settings is a big deal when it comes to apps that are meant to be in a child's hands. There's several of them that don't hide the settings. I'm going to show you some that have done it in creative ways. I always suggest that if it's an app that's meant to be in the child's hands, put the settings in the device's settings right? The iPads, iPhones, they all have their own settings section where you have to actually exit the app. You have to go into the settings, select that app, put all the settings in there, because it's much less likely that kids like my son are going to go into that, figure all that out, and mess up all my customizations in there. But with settings on the front, my son likes to touch different spots and see what they do. Is it well designed? Move forward real quick. See that slide? It's beautiful, huh? Kind of the same thing as my other slide, except I didn't use any formatting on it. There are some apps that do similar things. See, I put the Mount Shasta down here, Rowell's logo, use some text formatting. Aren't you glad that my whole presentation doesn't look like this thing? You don't want an app that looks like that either. There's some that do. That's not to say that's the most important thing, but all the more important if it's in front of a child and it's meant to keep their attention. You got to have some kind of visual rewards there. The last thing that I do is contact the developer. To a certain extent, I sometimes feel like a beta tester. I can't tell you how many of the different developers, and I'm in close contact with quite a few of them, how many of them had said, oh, thank you for that feedback. And then they say, look, I'm developing another app in a couple of months. Would you like to be on the, kind of the build team for the beta testing? And I always have to tell them, well, that doesn't pay very well. I don't have all the free time to beta test your apps. So I've had to turn down a ton of them because I'm not into beta testing. I want them to test their apps appropriately themselves, pay someone to test them. I don't care. Get a focus group. Get the apps tested and put out a good app. But the last thing that I do, if it's an app that I look at and I can't figure it out with my background, knowing all I do about the device and how the apps function, everything from swipe deletion to, I don't know, everything. If I can't figure it out, if I can't make it do something, the last thing I do before I publish my reviews, and I've learned this over time, my first reviews I didn't do this, I got smarter. I contact them first, say, this is what I've noticed with your app, and am I missing something? Help me out here. Because sometimes I do miss things. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. Sometimes I miss things, and they go, yeah, you have to do this. And I go, oh, okay, I should have saw that. So I generally contact them before I do my complete review also, just to make sure I'm covering all the bases. And so when they read my review, they're not surprised. They don't think that I just hammered their app. And then I look for support also, because that's important. Anybody familiar with any of these apps on the screen? Which ones? First words. Who's familiar with the real-time timer? Physical time timer? Okay. Some of you, not a whole lot of you. Time timer's been a huge thing in my house. All of my son's programs have used the time timer also. Program, not to get confused, an app is a program. I mean programs like his special education programs, things like that. They've often used the time timer with them. So we bought the little 3.5-inch version. It's a pretty good brick though. It's about yay wide, 3.5 inches. If I carry that in my pocket though, it's a little conspicuous. It'd be like this. So I don't carry that when I'm out. That's one of the few apps that we use all the time. So I have it on my iTouch, and just this last month they developed it. They came out with it also for the iPad. And that's been good. The iPad version is way better than the version that's available for the iPhone and the iTouch. The version that's available for the iPhone and the iTouch, you can't set it by, like you can with the physical time timers. You put your finger on the clock face, you drag it around. Can't do that on the version for the iTouch and the iPhone. We've adapted to it. We don't like it. Their new version on the iPad, you can do that with. And we love that. That works great in my house. So I'm prepared to go into each of these apps and show them to you, but give me a starting point. Any particular place? Any of you want to start? Yeah.
Oh, I'm not sure it's on this, but we get a lot of phone calls from consumers who asked about people with learning disabilities, and they are really curious about what apps are out there in terms of helping them organized, right, Shannon?
Yeah, I get a lot of calls like that with people with scheduling issues.
What kind of scheduling issues are we talking about?
Like they want to keep track of their medication, like when do I take what?
Okay.
They want to keep track of their appointments.
Okay, so all kinds of different types of scheduling
Like
issues.
daily living.
Daily
Okay.
living, yeah.
All right. One of the things, when I began to prepare for this presentation, I had to go, okay, I had to grab certain apps from different areas, trying to cover everything within, keeping it to about 10 apps, knowing my time constraints. How much time do I have left? An hour? Okay. Okay, that'll be pretty good now, especially with just 10 apps. And I can go into them in varying degrees. So what I had to do was pluck out certain apps. So that's what I did here. So how about if regarding scheduling, how about if we look at, I don't even know how to say that one, TASUC schedule. On my website, I know I've spelled out what that stands for. How about we look at that one first? It's more of a visual schedule. Also, another thing about all the reviews that I do, of course, I have all of the apps personally, hands-on experience with them. I sometimes forget to cover the things I take for granted that I know that you know just by reading my mind. Okay? So you can see right here, I'm going to swipe this over to the side now. I put a schedule in here already. So all I'm doing is moving my hand up and down on the iPad, kind of swiping up and down. On the left side of the screen, you see all the times are all kind of jarbled together. When I was reviewing this app, each time I found something that I thought wasn't right, it was just a few seconds more before I realized, oh, it does this. It does what I had wanted it to do. So with this, look, I can swipe up and down and move that. And then if I put my fingers on the screen in a pinch and expand them, it stretches that out, refocuses it. If I want to go into that little area that's jarbled up there, 615, 620, I can separate that a little bit more. And I can scroll also, which I liked. I can pinch it. It automatically adjusts. See the green line up there on the upper left under the clock? That's telling you about what time it is right now, 2 o'clock. Really tough to see from there. I can see it though too. It's faded because it's not a time that I have any of these activities set for. So one of the things I really like about TASUC schedule, I'm just going to keep calling it that, is it really takes full advantage of the touch interface. Not a lot of words on the screen in terms of settings here, this there. You just touch somewhere. Like if I tap the clock in the upper left, I can tell by the symbols they're using there that there's some settings and different areas to go into. So if I touch the little wrench, here I have the settings for the app. Now, you remember I just told you a few minutes ago that if it's an app that's meant to be in a child's hand, and this is in my son's hand, because he wants to see his schedule, he's holding this, I like the settings to be hidden. Well, one nice thing is you see schedule lock on the top there. I can turn that on, and then he can't mess with the rest of the schedule. And I believe I can also hide that settings. So I like that. It's nice. You can see some of the different options within it. Sound effects I can turn on or off. I have them off right now because then you guys just hear a little ding, ding. You guys can't hear a whole lot of sounds from this right now. But it has little sounds within the app is what that's for. Each time that a card flips, you hear a little, like something is physically flipping. Those kind of things. You can turn those on and off. Just touch close in the upper left is what I did. And then that disappears. Close. Okay, so you see, first I have homework, and if I touch homework and I hold touch and hold on it. Time to do your homework. You can sort of hear that, right? Because I have the volume all the way up on this. Time to do your homework. It enlarges it. It's obvious how to close this and to get back to where you were, right? The big X. You can touch it again. Time to do your homework. See how it kind of bounces? I like how it has that little visual, which I believe you can also turn on or off. You can control everything in this app, which I really liked. So I'm going to hit the big X up there. And then you see the arrow that's pointing toward the bottom right. With this one, this particular scheduler, you can have sub-steps built into it. So homework is the first step. And this isn't my son's actual schedule. I didn't bring his actual iPad. But I touch that arrow. Whoop, I touched it the wrong way. Touch that arrow. Bloop. That was my own sound effect, by the way. That one wasn't built in. Okay. You see how then it breaks it down into sub-steps. So first, these are shots I had to grab from the web. So anyways, this is my idea of science homework. A couple little cups. Maybe it's more like biology. Growing plants. I don't know. I touch it. Science. It bounces. It says that. Come down to handwriting. Handwriting. Right? Scroll down further. Math. All right, and then if I want to collapse it, you see that arrow is now pointing to the upper left. I touch that, and it collapses that. Now, as time goes on, it will move through these. Whereas you see the highlighted one is 4 o'clock, because that's the first item. That's the next one that's coming up, 4 o'clock, because it's 2 o'clock right now. It'll change that, and it'll automatically advance it. Now, I can set alarms on here also if I need an audible alarm. Right now, I just have it set, so yeah, at this time, this is when we'll start homework. But if I want an alarm to come on, I can touch the time right there. I can touch the 4 p.m., and it brings up this little dial. You see down at the bottom where it says alarm, has that little doot, touch that. Now the alarm's on. Touch it again, it's a little toggle. Goes on and off. I like that. It's a good alarm. So you can set that for each of these steps if you want, or not. So I like it. Any questions? Am I dragging on too much through this? Because I want to know. I don't want to bore anybody. Okay? Yes?
Is there anywhere on the app that, other than the line, that tells the child what the actual time is?
No. Well, top of the screen, way up there, but that's built into the iPad itself, not within the app though. It just gives the child the idea that, okay, this is the thing that's coming up next. On the side over here, yeah, you know, they can see, okay, it's past 2 o'clock because that line is just past 2 now, and it highlights it. That's the best indicator it gives. And as it approaches, they can look at that. Actually, if they want, they could zoom it in, and then you can see it even better. But that's the only thing they have built into that one in particular. Yeah?
Is that your voice?
Yeah, that was my voice.
Well, couldn't you say 5:30, time to eat dinner?
Yeah, true. I could. That's right. I also have the option of putting the alarm in there, but yeah, I can record whatever I want for each one of these icons. So what if, let's create a new schedule. Down in the lower left, I touch down there. I already renamed 2 of them. By default, they're just called Save 1, Save 2, Save 3, Save 4, Save 5. I renamed the first 2. So this one is school night routine. And then you're going to see when I touch this one, now it's the morning schedule on the top. But I don't have a schedule in there yet. So to create a schedule within this, now I'm going to touch that icon in the upper right. Okay, see now these are the icons I have the choice of, I can choose from to pop them into my schedule. And I think, I mentioned this is a Japanese app developed by a Japanese company, right? So you can see most of the pictures have a Japanese look to them too. A Japanese little boy. What I want to do though, let me see, if I go back, I want to go into my schedule. Down across the bottom, see me sliding on the bottom there? These are general categories. I created one, and I put my pictures in morning pics. Far bottom right. If I touch that, see, because I knew that I would be giving an example in here, and I wanted to have some that were conveniently located, so that when I came to make a schedule, I didn't look too stupid going, what picture should I use to put there? And I grabbed these pictures beforehand. I could go on the web, grab photos, put them in there, which is a nice convenience. But going on the web live and looking through Google Images in front of a crowd is a little bit risky. Because as you know, you can do a search for something innocent, something not so innocent can turn up. So I picked these images beforehand, loaded them in here. This is what you would have to do anyways if you're going to make a schedule. You want to either get your pictures in there, or with the iPad 2 and the iPhone, and now the most recent, I think it's also the 4th generation of the iPod Touch, they have cameras built in. First iPad doesn't have cameras built in, so you can't just take a picture. But if I was at home and I wanted to add something to my son's morning schedule, I would probably just snap a picture of him if I wanted to put in eating breakfast. Braden, look up, snap a shot, then it's in here and I could just import it right in there. So what I did is I grabbed these pictures beforehand. Now, let me see if I can remember exactly how to go back. Okay, you saw I touched the thing in the upper left. Touch the clock. Let me see if it does what I want. I'm just flipping through it now. Okay, all I'm doing is swiping and it's taking me through the different categories. It's not what I intended, but that's good too. Really takes advantage of the multi-touch interface. Because what I'm looking for, you see it changing up top, the name, as it changes the pictures? So you can organize your pictures in here too. Where is morning? Last one. There we go, morning pics. Okay, I'm going to use all 6 of these. So what I'm going to do is touch it, drag it over there. You can see that it tells you, it gives you kind of a tutorial built in what to do. Drag and drop to set a subcard. You saw subcards because that was when the arrow was pointing down and to the right. I touch that and breaks out substeps. Okay, so I got this one. Wait a minute, I didn't want that one there. So to get rid of that, they tell you, slide the card left to delete the card. See the little fingers down there? Right? Come on. Get on the bus and go to school. Get on the bus. Wait, I can do this. There we go. Just had to do the swipe right. I was touching it instead. Touching it and swiping it. Anyway, I like how that simple it's built in. There are some things like swiping correctly that a lot of the apps require you to do. I found that at first to be annoying because I just want to go, come on, get off the screen, get out of there. But then before long you learn, touch your finger down, just move it either direction while it's completely down there. Instead of going across the whole thing, just doot, and it does that. Okay, so let's take wake up, put it over there. Then let's take, let's see, this is a little test in sequencing. The next step will be eat cereal. If I put it here, it's a sub-step. See the green? You can slightly see the green. On my screen, I can see the green a lot better. The projector doesn't show it. Move that over a little bit, and now it's yellow. Now it becomes a sub-step. After eating cereal, let's go with, maybe you should feed the dog first. Okay, we'll go with brush teeth, doing the same thing down below. What if I want to reorder them? I realize, wait, well, I guess these ones are in the right order. So I'll tell you what, I'll take feed the dog, let's drag it over, put it on there, and then I realize, wait a minute, I want to reorder those things. I want him to feed the dog before he eats his own cereal because I want him to learn that, responsibility. You think you're hungry, your dog is hungry too. Okay, so all I'm doing is holding it, holding my finger on that, dragging it up the screen. Reorders it like that. Nice and easy. Brush teeth. Let's see what's after that. Go potty. And then go to school. So that's the schedule that I want for my morning, for my son's morning, whoever's morning. You get the point. Touch the arrow, slide it back, and there it is. It's in place. Now, if I don't want the times, he's not going to get up at 2 p.m. I might want to change that. That's easy. Just touch the 2 o'clock, anywhere really on that little strip, the little clock, the 2, the p.m. You touch anywhere on that. It pops this up, and I can put in a better time. Switch over to a.m. See, my son usually gets up at right about there, 6:30. So you saw the timeline adjust also. Now it's just showing the 1. Similar manner, you'd put all those in place. Any questions about this? Yeah.
Shane, I know sometimes with our kids, they get really rigid about the time and not necessarily the order. So I'm wondering if you didn't want to have the time on there and just the sequence. Is there a way of...
Funny you mentioned that. That was one of my suggestions to the developer too. I said, I don't necessarily need to see the times on there, but so far they haven't done that. There's not a way to get rid of the times on there yet. But yeah, I acknowledge the need for that one too. Any others? Yeah.
So if it takes, I'm sure it's never happened, it takes longer than you expect.
Never.
Never happened. Is that what you use the slider bar on the side? Is that, can it shift things for you?
If it takes longer than you expect, you could go in and change the time. With this bar on the side, this is just really for observing it, for looking where the current time is and what's coming up. If it takes longer, you could always go in and say, 3 p.m. Well, I'm going to make that 3:10 now. That's really. It doesn't move them all. Doesn't increment them all, right? Any other questions? Do you guys want to move on to another app? Yeah.
So, am I understanding that you've reviewed several types of schedule apps?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of them out there, though. You'd be surprised.
Best of the apps that you've reviewed?
Well, of the visual schedules, that's an interesting question because it depends. This is not the first one that I bought for my son. The first one I bought for him was called First Then Visual Schedule, and it's not yet available for the iPad. But to say this one's better than that wouldn't be accurate because some people will want different features that are built into this one versus that one. Some people who don't know how to use this one, who get frustrated by the touch interface, maybe hitting the clock to come down here. Some people want to see the words rather than the pictures for setting it up. First Then Visual Schedule gives you that. The first screen on it is you get 3 options. My Schedules, which are schedules you already set up. Edit Schedules. And then something about editing the libraries. Image libraries and recorded, what's the word I'm looking for here? Audio libraries, because you can record your voice in it. So I would say I like this one the best, but it's kind of subjective. You may like First Then Visual Schedule better. And there's another one called iPrompts that just came out with a schedule, essentially the same thing that they've had for the iPhone for a while, now available on the iPad. iPrompts is really more than a visual schedule, but off the top of my head, those 3 are coming to mind because I know those 3 are available for the iPad. So although this one's my favorite, I also really like the First Then Visual Schedule. That's the one that really had that first impact for us with my son. And it has arrows that point to the next step. He seemed to like that. Yeah?
I remember you saying at another conference that you don't send this to school. Can you send this in an email, his schedule, to his teacher so his teacher could upload that to whatever computer or device he's using there?
Say, if I had a schedule within this app or any other visual schedule, could I email it to them. So no, none of them have that capability. None of the visual schedules right now. Yeah?
When the child is using it, is there a way for them to indicate when they finish a particular step before they move on to the
Yeah,
next
that's a
one?
good question. In fact, see if I can do this right the first time. We'll say he just fed the dog. I think I swipe. Yeah. Good thing you asked, because I don't remember every single thing with every single app.
Do you remember if it's that way on the first then scheduler?
I know you can also check it off in first then visual schedule, not by swiping though. With this one, it's swiping. With that one, I think it's touching the check mark, I believe, in the upper right, and then it puts the check mark over the whole image. You want to talk about my talk? We'll go into my talk right now. With this one, I told you, my son has autism. He's 9. He is verbal, but it's like pulling teeth to get him to talk. He'll talk when it comes to his needs, if he wants to get something, if he wants a drink, if he wants to go somewhere. He always wants to have fun. But one of the things that he can't answer is an open-ended question, like, who'd you see at school today? So he's verbal. He doesn't necessarily need an AAC app. But what I did, and I know you can do a lot of different things with these, this is kind of demonstrating the flexibility of the app, of this particular type of app. What I decided was, since he wasn't answering me when I'd say, who'd you see at school today? What I did first was I taught him, instead of getting upset and frustrated and trying to hit me, because I'd ask him if he doesn't answer, he doesn't say a word, I ask him again. He goes, no, Dad! And then if I ask him again, he's starting to get a little combative. I wanted him to learn another way of responding to me. So I taught him to say, please stop questioning me, which questioning sounds like a big word for him. He doesn't get it out exactly as he should, but he gets it out enough that I know he's saying, stop questioning me. And I respect that, because I taught him, if he wants me to stop, tell me that. It's an alternative to getting flustered. But what I decided to do with this app is, you see in the top center, who did you see is what I titled it. Now, I took his class picture, the overall class picture. He's in the special day class right now, so I think we're only talking about 12 students. But now if he touches it, you'll have to listen carefully to hear this, but anyway, he touches that one in the middle. Who did you see at school today? He hears the question again, so it's reinforcing that's the question he's answering. I scanned in everybody from his class. Now this is the class photo they give out to everybody. I didn't have to ask permission to use it. I wasn't going to ask permission. If we paid for his pictures and they toss that in there, I'm going to use it however I want. Next year, though, you see, the thing is, they finally give you that whole class photo like halfway through the school year. Next year, I've primed them, and I said, as part of my son's IEP, all right, but I'm going to draft a letter, and I would like you to get it into the hands of all the parents in his class, because I want to get those pictures before halfway through the school year. So that's in his IEP this time. But these pictures look nice. So you can see how this works. He can scroll down. His principal will be happy to know that I'm talking about her at the Mind Institute. All the students in his class. So he can see them. He's even got an aide in there, his 2 teachers in the upper left. Now when I ask him, he's got that visualization. He can see them. Did he see them at school today? So when he touches, say, Kevin in the dead center there, Kevin says his name, enlarges the picture. And by the way, this screen is pressing it together. It's on here, on the iPad, you see it, it's not doing that. It's a true representation of that picture. But anyways, this was great. Whereas he used to get upset with me when I asked him that question, he started getting happy. And now when I ask him if he isn't near the iPad, he wants to get the iPad, or he tells me that he'll show me on the iPad later. And I go, okay. But he likes it now. I actually shot video and I put it up on YouTube because I wanted his teachers to see how he's answering that question for me now, because he's happy about it. He likes to see his classmates on his iPad. He likes to touch them, see them enlarged. And there's particular students that he seems to be endeared to more so than others. He has learned that you touch the cancel button in the upper left there, and then it goes back to this, and he can touch the next one. Jedediah. He loves Jed. He'll touch Jed's picture a few different times to show me that one. So that's some of the flexibility that different apps have, just inherent to the way that they're designed with kind of an open architecture like this. Any questions? Okay. Now, obviously, this was designed as an AAC app. And the way this one's designed, if I hit home, which is in the upper left there, it takes me back to my opening screen. I've made it pretty simple. You can get really in-depth with this one if it's for someone who developmentally is ready to have all those options. You can really go in deep with this app. The reason I chose this one over a lot of the other, there is another AAC app, by the way, that I have to speak about also that I've chosen right now. But the reason I chose this one instead of Proloquo to Go or Touch Chat or a lot of those other ones is because this one is reasonably priced. It offers a free version, which now a couple of the other AAC app developers are beginning to put out free versions or light versions for like $10. But this one is free. So, and it gets so in-depth, it has the features built in that you'd want, such as you can back it up so you don't lose your customizations if you lose the device. What about library sharing is a new feature, I think, within the past couple of months that the developer has built in. Library sharing is so that, say, if you're a teacher and you want to be able to use this one device with multiple children who would have different customizations per boards, you could have multiple boards and you can share those different boards. You know what I mean? You can use one for different children, and that's great. Having the in-app backup is a big deal because if you lose it, you lose the device, it's okay, you've backed up. You got to back up. If you don't back up, you're taking a big risk. You're wasting a lot of time later maybe putting all your customizations back into it. So this is $39.99 for the full version, so it's really reasonably priced considering all the features that it packs. I kind of bent over. Which feature do I jump to next to explain to you in regards to this?
For the different apps, I know that the iPad has different megabytes, like, 16, 30, 60 something. Do these apps take up memory space, or how does that work?
They do. Yeah, depending on, as you load them up, they're going to take up more space. It's probably going to be a negligible amount, though. But that is something you want to consider. My son's iPad is a 64 gig. They come in 16, 32 gigs, and then 64. We're talking about storage space.
Right.
Yeah. This one is a 16, and if you only have, well, I can't see somebody filling it up with just apps. But if you put a lot of video on it, put a lot of movies, if you're downloading movies from iTunes, that's the stuff that's really going to fill it up. Lots of music, lots of video. That's going to fill them up quick.
Okay.
Other than that, you'll be okay if you don't do that.
I don't have
generally.
apps yet, so can I use them? And so you're saying the apps don't really take up that much space, right?
There are some apps, some of the large full-featured AAC apps can take up to half a gig.
Okay.
But even if you're looking at having a device with 16 gigabytes of memory, half a gig isn't that much in the grand scheme. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I told you that I was going to show you what apps that aren't made for the iPad, what they look like when you load them on the iPad, because most of them are compatible, not all of them. This is the first then visual schedule, the visual schedule I told you that I purchased, the first app that I got. You see what it looks like? It's taken up that small amount of real estate on the screen. But there's a 2x down here. I can enlarge it. So I'm going to do that. Touch the 2x, and it takes up a lot more space. It's taken up roughly 2/3 of the screen. And it's kind of hard to see right here, but it's pixelated also. It's not making good use of the screen real estate on the iPad. But it will work on here. Do we want to talk about My Medical? Yeah? Okay. Yeah? Okay. I'm gonna. No, because it's only, there's no free version for it. So okay, let's go into Word Slaps then. You guys have the free version of that. I have the full version. So when I reviewed Word Slaps, I was looking at how could my son use this? Right now, it only has 3 levels, and those 3 levels are essentially how many options will we put on the screen. Let's go into it real quick. I'll show it to you, and then we'll do a little more explaining.
Find the cat.
Okay, I have it set so it says, find the cat. She says cat. She picks one of those, find the cat. So it's identification here. You got to, well, see, I got the cat, you got the gorilla. So, find the cat. She keeps saying that ever so often, if I don't touch anything, or if I touch the wrong thing, it doesn't do anything. I'm touching the tortoise, I'm touching the rooster, but watch, when I touch the cat, when I get the correct response, gives you a little animation, a little reward, and then it moved on. Now it's saying,
Find the bird.
Find the bird. It has different rewards on it. That is something that, in order for children like my son to come back to it, it's got to give them a reason to move on and do the next task also. Those little rewards, yeah! That stuff, and the spinning. Some of them will spin. Sometimes it's spinning again. Okay, let's get to one. Let's see.
Find the donkey.
Find the donkey. I found it. See, did a slightly different animation.
Find the chicken.
They call it a chicken. I call it a rooster. It makes different sounds and it does different animations. You can customize this. So I'm thinking, the way that I use this with my son, I don't always know that he knows the answer to a question, even if sometimes he gives me the right response. It can be as easy as yes and no questions. We'll say, do you want candy? And he'll say, yeah, and we know, okay, he means yeah to that one. But there's some questions we ask him, he'll say yes. And I'm thinking, no, he shouldn't be saying yes to that. So then my response, I always say, do you want a raccoon burger? And he pays attention to that and goes, no. This allows me to see if he knows the answer to different questions. See, I can use my own pictures in here. I can put pictures of, say, a man digging with a shovel. I can put a picture of a man pulling a flower, sniffing a flower, and something else. And I could make this say, touch the man who's digging. And he's got to touch that right one before he gets a reward. It's nice and customizable for that. And you can see how flexible that can be for so many other things. You can use that for certain steps in sequencing. If I had a man who was actively digging, and then I had a man who already dug the hole, maybe I had a man who was thinking about digging. I don't know how I would portray that. But I can use this for sequencing like that. And randomly, it would choose which one it wants them to find. So it would help them also identify different steps and sequences. I know that right now, I'm going to hit the little house and go back to the home screen. Right now, it only has 3 levels. Those levels, of course, are how many options you got on the screen. Right? On level 2 now, you get 2 options. You can even make it so it's only 1 option.
Find the chicken. The bird.
Can you show just quickly where you would go?
Find the
Okay. When I'm on the home screen, all I'm doing is touching the numbers 1, 2, or 3 on the bottom for the levels.
Okay, but when you said you can customize it,
Oh, yes. Customizing it. I'm going to touch settings in the upper, and then I'm going to come down, see the cloud, edit/add content.
that's it, okay.
I can go in there. This is where I would add folders. Add a folder. If I touch that, now it wants me to give it a folder name. Hit save. Now I can click that. I can add a category within it. So you can really go in all kinds of directions with this. The developer told me that very soon they're going to expand it so that it has 6 different levels. She said they're also going to be making it so that you can change the rewards or you can turn off the in-app rewards. Rewards being things like spinning icons. Some children may fixate on a spinning icon. You'll be able to change those things. So you can see where this app has a potential to go. Do we want to move on? Okay. The other one that you guys have, I think, you got My Talk, Word Slaps, First Words. Okay, you haven't all been exposed to First Words. I have First Words Deluxe. You guys have First Words Lite version. I looked at the Lite version. It does the same thing. It's pretty cool. It just limits you. You don't get the full 140 plus words to look through. But they all do the same thing. First Words recently added phonics. Let me show what I mean. Let me see how I got it set up first. If I touch animals. Okay, yeah, I have phonics set up with it right now. Instead of, by default, I think you guys will find that it'll say A. See, what I like about this, you can set up how long you want the words to be, so how complex the words are. You can, it has different languages built in. You can have it set to phonics. You can turn on or off letter hints. What are letter hints? When I touch the shadowy A up there in the word ant, you see the A is shaking, and you hear coming from the device. And if I touch the big friendly ant, says it. If I touch the T, the A, or the N down below, it's a little beat. It's a snare. Okay. So about this, if I touch that A, and you can see this would be great for first learners. This would be letter recognition. This would be spelling. Other things that are slipping in my mind. Anybody fill it in the blanks? You see where this could go. I'm going to touch and hold the A and drag it up there into place. I'm going to try to put it on the T. It's almost like it has a negative magnetism to it. Like they're both negatives. Put it over it, it kind of bounces it away like 2 negative ends on a magnet. But if I take that A, it's almost like the correct spot is the opposite polarity. So you get it up there near it and it kind of bounces it into place. Okay. You see what it's doing? You got the reward, the animation, you got the sound, you got the audible reward. And you saw that, by the way, you can also turn it off so it doesn't automatically advance to the next word. That's a feature they just built into it. I have it set up to automatically go. But you saw that it reinforces the word ant. One by one, the letters pop up. A, N comes forward, T, and then all at once, ant, to let you know those letters form the whole word. They make up the whole word, right? It's great for that. I have it set for phonics, so it's going with each one. The reward and everything. Let's go into this. Oh, this one obviously is meant to be in the hands of children. Adults aren't going to use it, other than me right now to demonstrate it. See the little bitty house in the upper corner up there that's kind of translucent? That, I bet you, is going to be for settings. But watch how they have this. So, first of all, it's a little bit hidden from view. But if a child does touch it, it doesn't go straight to settings. You see it move to the center? Now it's active. If I touch it, it'll go to settings. If I don't, you see it slide right back over? I have to touch it, slides in the middle. Now if I touch it, takes me back, there's my options. So you see how they hid it. They didn't have to use a password. They kind of were creative in hiding that. So children can't really get in there and jack up all the settings. Because if my son could, he would. Lots of settings here to choose from for an app that would seem to be such a simple thing. Spelling, if I touch that, I have it set on phonics, you see. Phonics or letter names. Well, if I want to switch it back to letter names, I touch up there, switch back, go backwards in my settings. I can turn speech on or off. Does everybody know what serif font means? Yeah, a little, I can have a little whoop-oo, all the letters have little curves on the end. Fanciness, a little fanciness with the fonts. Sans serif fonts are like Arial, straight T. You don't get any squigglies, nothing cute with it. That's serif font. I can leave serif font on, or I can make it sans serif, which is often easier to read. Auto advance, on or off. These are all toggles. Maybe I don't want it to automatically advance when they spell the first word. Maybe I want them to have to swipe to turn. You see how I can alter the longest words down there? If it's a new learner, maybe I want to make it so only 4-letter words and shorter. You can customize that as you want. Look, letter case, uppercase, lowercase, capitalized. I can do that how I want to do. So it really has they thought of a lot of the little settings in here. And that's great. They thought of everything, in my opinion. I rate this as a 5-star app. I'm going to exit that by hitting done. Boy, time is running by. Yeah?
Hey, so who makes the apps? Or if you were really curious to find out, who actually created them, what their credentials were, if they were based on any kind of research or anything like that. Do you get into that sort of thing at all? Or?
I could make an app if I wanted to. I could code it. I could develop it.
Right.
Oh, I think you pay Apple $99. You get their packet of information with their certain programming language. From doing programming in the past, I can tell you that in my opinion, and I think a lot of other people who've done programming would share this opinion, programming languages are basically the same. They just all have different syntax. So if I wanted to learn a new syntax, I could give Apple $99, get their packet, I could develop an app. So that said, especially in this niche of special education apps, all the developers are very small. I know some that are just one man, just a one-man team. My talk is one guy.
In education, a lot of it, they want to go by as a research-based, or
Sure.
You go buy a new textbook, it's got to be vetted or whatever. I'm just curious if there's any information?
Not that I'm aware of.
You can through the iTunes Store, usually either on the computer through the iTunes Store or through the iTunes Store on the device. There's always a link to the developer site. It's usually over on the left-hand navigation pane, and you can just hit take me to this developer site, and that'll give you some general information about who the developer is. Most of the time, not all the time.
Yeah. I don't know that that'll tell you anything about whether the app was research-based or anything. But yeah, it's a good resource. Thanks. All the developers, for the most part, are small, independent. A lot of the apps in the special education, a lot of the AAC apps, visual schedules, more often than not, I found that it was a parent who championed the app, who conceived the idea, but they're not going to code the app. I call them the developer because they are the ones that paid for it to get it programmed, when in fact someone else coded it or programmed it. But the person who came up with the app, they're the ones that more often than not retain control of it. So I tend to call them the developer. But they're not the ones who actually physically coded the app most of the time. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to jump into my medical really quick with the remaining time I have. And this is one that you guys don't have. Okay, so you got Cowboy Shane in there. I'm the only one that's in there right now. Now, I can scroll on that one side, on the right side, up or down. You can see I put info in here. This is just general info. If I want to add somebody else, down in the bottom left, that little paper clip holding the yellow strip, I can touch that little image of 3 silhouettes together. If I want to add somebody else to it, hit the plus, create a new record. Okay, created a blank record for me. Now I'm going to hit edit just above where it says new record, upper left. Let's see, we want to add a photo because I want to be able to visualize whose it is. I could take a photo with this device because it has a camera. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to choose an existing photo. Takes me to my photo album. Ah, there she is. We'll call her Grandma Edna. Okay, so I touch up there at the end, anywhere near new record, because I want to change the name. I'm going to hit backspace. I'll just call her Grandma for sake of time right now. Okay, hit done. So I know this is her record. I can visualize that because I have her picture there. If I want to put in general information, I touch edit. Now I can type in her name. I can go down in, type in her address. I'm going through this fast. I could also grab information from contacts. If Grandma Edna is already in my contacts, she's not, but let's hit done. Let's go down to physicians. I don't have any physicians in there. I hit edit. Ah, see, I can still grab from my contacts there. So let's say I have a couple doctors in my contacts. Oh, look who we got in there. Obviously, I set this up beforehand. I got to kind of stop you from falling asleep. Okay. I can touch. We all know who Bones is, right?
Let's go with Bones instead of Lecter.
We'll go with Bones. You didn't get to see his picture. If you saw his picture, maybe you'd know who he is. Bones is from Star Trek. Any Trekkies? Yeah? I'm not really, but...
The barbarian medicine.
So I hit done. You see how it automatically grabbed all his info that was in my contacts. It grabbed his name, it grabbed his phone number, it grabbed his we'll say it's his office address, because I most likely don't have my doctor's home address. So it's nice that you can do that. I can come down here. Let's go out of Grandma and let's go back to me. I'm going to touch the little image of the people in the bottom. Switch back to Shane Nurnberg. Let's go to medications. Current medications. Chill pills. You see, I can add a picture down there even. It's visual. If I wanted, I could take a picture of the label on my prescription bottle or put my prescriptions in there. I could put whatever I want down there. But you see what I've done. I put information in there. Now, let's say I'm done taking the chill pills. I want to make that a past medication. I'm going to touch Edit in the upper right. And now I'm going to touch the red minus. See that popped up? Move or delete medication. I touch that, and it says, okay, what do you want to do? Move it or delete it? I will move it. And then I'm hitting done in the upper right. Okay, so it's not under my current medications anymore. Now it's under past medications. You know what I'd wanted to do was demonstrate when it's yeah, well, yeah, that too. But I'm trying to demonstrate that during the presentation. You got your frequency in there, your dosage. I don't think it does alarms, though, to indicate when to take them. That's what I was thinking it might have done. Doesn't do that. Right, doesn't alert you. I'm going to hit back on the left. Let's look at documents and photos on the bottom of that column. See the different things I can put in there? I can zoom in on that. You know, some topical solution. So you can see where if I had this in the doctor's office, I don't know my medical history off the top of my head. I can't recall that stuff. Family history, topical solutions and pills all have different names that I can't remember, except for the commercials I see on TV. And I don't take any of those, so that does me no good. But you can see where this could help. X-rays. You can put images in this. Family history. All true information. Does everybody know the difference between paternal and maternal? Because I just found out. Some of you do? Am I the only person who didn't know the difference? Come on, somebody else has to have not known paternal and maternal. I'm the only one?
Guess so.
Okay. Or you guys aren't fessing up. Okay. Okay, here's something else for this. This is one of those apps that's separate but equal. Remember I showed you my icons at the beginning for compatibility? You buy this once. If you bought it for the iPhone, you could install it on your iPad. You'd have it on 2 devices if you had both of those. You may not want to take your iPad into the doctor's office with you. On the other hand, maybe you would. But they have a version specific to the iPhone and the iPod Touch. Now you might be thinking, what if all that information, you put it in here, you don't want to put it all in here again, right? You can just go and I have it installed on here already. And this is an app I have yet to publish a review for on my website, by the way. Exclusive peek, I guess you might call it. Okay, on the iPad, I think I'm touching the little gear in the bottom right. Scroll to the bottom. Transfer to another device. Okay, I'm touching that. Now on here, I'm going to the same area. Settings. Transfer to another device. Oh yeah, okay. This would work if I had this on the Wi-Fi here. I haven't typed in the code for it yet, and since I'm about out of time, I'm not going to do it. But it will transfer everything over to this device, so you don't have to type it in again. So if you carry your phone with you all the time and it happens to be an iPhone, that could be handy. You can have your complete medical history on there. But if you lose your iPhone, somebody else gets their hands on your iPhone. They have your whole medical history, right? Yeah. Well, for one, you realize you can password protect your entire phone. You can also set it up so that after 10 failed attempts to get into your phone, it wipes out all the data. You can see the benefits of that. Especially if you've synchronized this with your home computer and you get another iPhone. You put your stuff back on there. But within the app itself, you can also password protect just that app. So if you happen to give your phone to somebody, maybe to play a game on it, maybe give it to your child or something. They can get into everything, but they can't get into this particular program. So it's nice. Has a nice friendly interface too, which I really like. I'm going to hit cancel. Oh, you want to see a bug within this app? Yeah.
Question. I see the envelope, not on that settings, but on the family history.
Yes, you can email.
You can email it. So if I had my parents' information, something happened with my parents, I can email whoever, whatever hospital they're at.
Yes, you're right. You can.
Can you email the whole file or just the sections of the file?
You can do it both ways. You can filter it. I want to show you something really quick. The developer probably wouldn't appreciate me showing you this, but okay, this is a bug. When I was looking over this, I haven't published the review yet, but this is a bug I found. Let's see if I can replicate it. Touching the gear. Where was I at? Not transfer to another device. Let me try that. Looking for where I filter. No, that's not it. Export. Okay, export, right? Here's a whole bunch of my information. Now watch this. I touch filter because I only want to send certain parts of that. Now that I touch filter, I go, nah, I don't really want to go in there. So rather than touching, okay, this is what produced the bug for me before. If I touch done, it'll crash the program. See what it did? That's a bug within the code of the app. And I've told the developer about it, so I'm sure they'll be fixing it before long. Those are the little things that I try to look for when I try to crash an app to find whether it's stable or not. Because some people, it'll seem natural to them to hit done. To me, what seems natural, let's go to the proper place. Where was I? Which one? Export, that's right. Export. Under the people, whoop. Export, there it is. To me, what seems natural is to just touch anywhere else. And generally within apps, that does it. If I touch anywhere else, it just closes the filter view. Just takes me back a step. But there's that bug. Those are the kind of things that I find, and I tell, it has to do with how I rate apps on my site. Yeah?
You may have already spoken to this, but is there some place that you could upload this on a website? Like the Google, it has compared to the Google one.
That I could upload what?
The information. It's not just apps. You can get it remotely.
Oh, say information within my medical?
Right.
If I could upload that somewhere?
Right.
So you're saying like medical history, after you fill out my medical, could you upload that somewhere?
Right.
Sure. I'm sure that you could do a lot. You could probably copy and paste the email if you use Google Docs or something. Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no. It's just Google years ago, they had a program where you could remotely get it from anywhere, from any device.
Google having a program that does medical stuff?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with it.
You could use something like Dropbox. That's a free, basically cloud-based storage. And
Oh, is that what you're talking about?
In there, and then
Yeah, I
you
use
access
Dropbox
it.
too.
So you can try something like that.
And so you're not familiar with the Google product then? So.
No, I use Dropbox though. I like Dropbox, but
Have you evaluated, it says Smarty Ears Expressive. It's an AAC.
yeah, I think I have.
Did you like it? Do you remember?
I can pull it up right now on my website. Let's see. If I'm thinking of the same app, it's an app that in the past I haven't liked because it's been very limited. Yeah, here's Expressive right there. It has 4 stars. They recently revamped it, and I think it's a very good product now.
The images just look fun instead of your symbol sticks or whatever board maker.
Yeah.
They seem.
Yeah, I like Expressive. It's kind of an entry to mid-level AAC app.
How many images does it have? Do you know?
By default, I'm not sure. I know that they're working to improve their library of images, though, because in the past, and still to a large extent, I think that a lot of their images look like their word art, right, from Microsoft Word, and that has turned me off in the past. But I know that they're working to improve that. My reviews have been pretty influential in some of the apps, and I think this may be one of them. Of course, if the developer, Barbara Fernandez, watches this, that Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Some of them, though, I know because developers have said, thanks for the feedback. And within the next app update, I see most of the changes I suggested are implemented. So I know it has an impact there, too. And which is exactly what I want. Because I don't like giving negative reviews. But at the same time, I got to be honest with families and with others who are looking to buy these apps. I want them to know what the limitations are. I want them to know what they're getting into, especially as the apps get more and more expensive. So, yeah?
I've read a lot of your reviews and everything. Do you have any reviews that might do a cross comparison of, let's say, Expressive with My Talk?
I've been thinking about doing something like that. If I did, I'd put it on my blog on iPad Aptitude. It's what I call my my apps blog. I've been thinking about that. See, but it's tough to do that. Like I was saying, between First Then Visual schedule and TASUC schedule, it's subjective as to which one you like better. My mom recently tried to put images in First Then Visual schedule, and she said she was frustrated with it. And I said, Mom, it's easy. I'll show you. I'll show you how to do it. So some people may be frustrated with either, but I think they're pretty simple. You got to dedicate yourself to figuring it out, to knowing how to do it.